Hi, my name is Meredith, and in this video, I'll be talking about the books I read in February and the books I hope to read in March. So, this is the final tally for February. Da, 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 da. As you can see, I read 2 more books than I brought in. So we're doing it. We're doing my New Year's resolution, which was to read at least as many books each month as I brought in. And I've read more books this month than I've brought in. So I'm winning. One of those was a DNF, and I will get to that. But as I think I stated last month as well, just my January card, I count DNFs as read, especially for this tally, because as long as it gets them out of my TBR pile, it's a success. Started last month out with, I think, a holdover, so I think I've talked about it before, The Devil in the White City. Once again, I've forgotten to pull up what I rated anything, so we're just freewheeling here. I enjoyed this a lot. I didn't realize at first that it's not all about the serial killer. Like, over half the book is more about the World's Fair, the White City. The Devil in the White City. The White City is the World's Fair that was happening at the time. So I was surprised to learn that, but once I found that out and I kept reading, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing about this. Lots of cool stuff. Lots of stuff that we have today and we do today and we think nothing about that happened for the first time or were introduced at the World's Fair, which is really more what this book is about. Even like the end, when it gets to the end with like catching the serial killer, it feels very quick. Like it just kind of glosses over it, it feels like. And that, which is weird to say because it details it. Like I don't feel like there's anything missing that I would need to know to get the full story. But it just felt very quick compared to how much time and detail we spent on the World's Fair. There we go. There we go. This one has been inducted into my library. Next, I was in the mood for poetry. So I read Wallace Stevens' The Poem at the End of the Mine, Selected Poems. It was put together by Holly Stevens. Once he died, Holly Stevens got together as much of his work as she could that had been unpublished, was in notebooks and stuff, and got it all together. Some things had been published, but most of it had not been, or at least that's my understanding. What I think is really cool is that she did it chronologically, so you can see his development as a poet over the years. I wish they would have put the years with them, so I knew like how quickly or slowly he was developing in certain areas, but still cool structure to it. He died in like the 1950s, I think. And he is, however, a product of his time. So we get some N-words in here. We get some not politically correct depictions of Middle Eastern people in here. So some of the poetry was okay, but I'm not really gonna be raving about it to anyone. Even if you take all that stuff out, I don't think I'd be raving about it to anybody, so it's just like, take it or leave it. But I do believe, yep, because it was a gift. It also got stamped into the library. Not great, but it made it into the library anyway. It's not like stellar, but I can't see myself getting rid of it, and I also can't see me giving it to somebody because it's not great. It's not like the best thing ever. So it's in the library now. It's part of the library. Then, because I said gross, don't like him as a person. You know who I do like as a person? Bam, Wonder Woman. So she's who I went to next. Wonder Woman, Her Greatest Victory. So it's like an anthology of different things. There's some gorgeous art in here. Like things where I would turn the page and I would just like stop a sec to be like, oh. Outside of that, it's a really weird anthology. Like they try and like sell it on the back. It's like, oh, it's okay, not on the back. Where did I read the little blurb? I read a little blurb somewhere about this specific anthology where they were trying to be, and it was like marketing for it. It wasn't like a random person. And they were trying to be like, oh, it's the anthology to introduce you to all of her greatest villains so that you can like be prepared, whatever. But it's just very clearly marketing in book form for the movie. Every single story in this anthology either has Steve Trevor, which is her romantic interest in both the original Wonder Woman movie and Wonder Woman 1984, or the Cheetah, which is her villain in Wonder Woman 1984. So it's really just to like hype those two characters up for you for the movie. I don't have anything against that, but just when it was pitched, it's like, oh, her greatest victories, talking about all of her significant villains. No, you're not. You're here to hype her love interest and her specific villain of the movie coming out. And if you want to say that, just say that. Like, so my problem is not with the anthology, it's with the marketing. I enjoyed it. And it's part of the library. I gotta speed this up. I got 10 books. I did 10 books this month. 10 books. Okay, then I did Grub Street. What issue was this? Issue 70. It was really good. It is also a college lit mag. I read a college lit mag last month, but that one was, it only accepted college student admissions. Grub Street is the one I worked on in college, and they do not just accept student submissions, they accept outside submissions as well. So the quality and style of the writing overall was notably better than the York Review issue that I read last month. But I will say it's like a double-edged sword to that, because some of these pieces were so stand out and you're like, that is good. You can tell that's not a college student. You can tell that that's somebody who knows what they're doing. Or if it is a college student, they're a very talented college student. But then, so when they had things that weren't as great, it was like, why am I even reading this? So I skipped a couple of things in here just to be like, I do not care. Yeah, I just felt like I was able to be a lot kinder with the York Review last month. And I was not able to be as kind with everything in this issue of Grub Street, but there is a lot of very, very good in this issue of Grub Street, so she made it. Everybody's always just trying to walk it into my room. No knocking. Awful. Anyway, so after the Grub Street, Nightwing 100, it counts because I counted it when it came in, so when it goes out, it should also count. This is the 100th issue of this iteration of Nightwing. It is so exciting. It's so good. I was having a tough time when I read this, and I read it and it just made me happy, and it was a little spark of light in a otherwise tough time. If you're a fan of Nightwing, if you're a fan of the Titans, if you're a fan of Batman, if you're a fan of the Bat family, if you are not a fan of the prison system, you will like this. I love it. I love it. Anyway, also it's good. It's 100. This did not get stamped. This got put back in its little wrapper. It's never ever leaving my library, so it doesn't even need the stamp because it's never leaving, so no one has to know where to return it. Then I read Love Lost by Catherine Lee. She is a NaNoWriMo friend, acquaintance, friend. I like to think of everybody on that Discord as my friend, but I don't think they all feel that way back. It was a fun story. It is very obviously like independently published though. Lots of typos. Not to say that like the big publishers don't let typos through, but not this many. So, but the story was very cool. It has a sequel. Thanks. Hey. I didn't stamp it. She's officially part of the library. Next, that had like, I know I explained this in my vlog, but that had like a slow burn romance, kind of slash like doomed romance that I think is just going to be slow burn, not actually doomed. And I said that's too slow of a romance for me. I can do a slow burn within one book. I do not like slow burns over entire series. So I had to have a palate cleanser in Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. It is so fun. It is so... I don't think, it's not a full 5 stars. I don't know, something just wasn't quite clicking for me, and I don't think I can explain it. I liked it a lot. Something just wasn't putting it over the edge to like, oh my gosh, you know? This is London, who is non-binary. And I thought it was so cool because they do use London pronouns as they, them throughout the entire book. Like there's even a part where a character tries to, like there's obviously not nice characters, people who aren't okay with them. And there's a point where one woman was being like, I don't know what she said, but it's something like, she was saying something and the author put they in the quote, and then after it was like, only she didn't say they. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like you're going out of your way to like respect the character's pronouns. And that's cool. I believe I stamped already. I did not stamp. And I am loaning it to a friend soon. Gets a stamp. Put it in my library. Then I read, I don't have it anymore because I already gave it away unstamped because it's a permanent giveaway. A book of poems called Cutrachos. It's by Roy Guzman. It has lots to do with him being queer and his immigration to America at a young age with his mother. And it's very like experimental poetry. It came to me highly recommended, and I just didn't, it didn't click for me. I don't know. But my little sister loves poetry. She writes some of her own poems, which I think are wonderful. And she actually, in my mind, has a very similar vibe to the person who recommended me that book of poetry in the first place. So while I'm disappointed that I did not love the recommendation as much as I wanted to, because I really respect the tastes of the person who recommended it, I think that my little sister might really like it. So when her birthday was mid-February, I wrapped it up along with a couple of other poetry books and sent it her way. Even though I didn't like them, I felt that she might too. Then I tried to get back on my established TBR for the month that I talked about in last month's TBR video, and I picked up Gay Girl Good God by Jackie Hill. Now, in last month's video, I was like, I thought when I picked it up that it was her being gay and Christian. And then I found that, oh, she's actually now married to a man with kids, so I don't know. And I looked at the back of the book and like the final chapter, and it was saying like, oh, we need to get away from this gospel of heterosexual relationships, like that's not the be all end all of Christianity. And I was like, oh, okay. So like, even though it's not where I thought it was going, maybe it's still good. I started reading it. And it has this foreword by this woman that I was like, she does not like gay people. So I was suspicious, but then it got to the introduction by Jackie Hill herself. I was trying to stick it out. I was trying to see, because I was like, I'm not going to discount it for like not even the author of the book, you know? So I got to the introduction by Jackie Hill herself, and there were some red flags, but it was still like, I don't know. Like, let's hear her out and see what she has to say on the subject. And then getting into the actual, after her introduction, getting into the actual book, her writing is wonderful. Like, it's like artistic literature, but about queerness and Christianity. And it was like looking back at her life, like when a girl asked her out at her school dance and things like that. And so we get some like looks back, and then it reaches a point where it starts talking explicitly about, you know, being gay and being Christian separately, not together. And it doesn't even discuss why it is or would be a sin. It just almost assumes that, oh yes, it's a sin, and we all know it's a sin. So And that was as soon as we got there, and as soon as I was like, oh, we're just assuming that everybody who's reading this book is on the same page that gayness is a sin. Got it. We're done. We're done. So yeah, it was a DNF. Gets checked off my list because it's a tally mark out of my TBR. And this is the last you will ever see of it on any of my channels. It did not get a stamp. Nope. So yeah, let's get it off the screen. You'll never see it again. I might use the pages for like some bookish crafts someday. So that's like the only reason I keep. That's really the only reason I keep any DNF is because I'm like, oh, I hate this book. I hate it. So I will have no problem if I want to do something cool with like book pages someday of like tearing this apart. Now, last book I read in February. Technically, I finished it in March. I disappointed everybody on my Instagram stories because everybody marked on the poll, yeah, you can finish it. I could not. Some Luck by Jane Smiley. Technically, I finished it yesterday, but because I finished it before I made this video, and I read the majority of it in February, and I also read it before I switched out my cards. I said, well, I'll just mark it up to February, and so we're counting it. It's all it does. It doesn't fudge things. I'm not also marking it in March. All it does is take it away from March. So it is the start of a trilogy that tells the story of the Langdon family over 100 years, starting with Walter and Rosanna on their newly bought farm with their newly born baby, which will be the first of 6. I didn't quite get the point. So I eventually settled into it. It was almost calming how boring it was. And I was like, I'm never gonna read any more of these. But by the end, because there are 2 more, it's a trilogy. By the end, it was like a Sims family. Like they just were living their lives, but I'd been watching them so long that they just grew on me. So I could see myself getting more of these in the future. I'm just saying it's not like a stellar book. Don't run out and buy it or anything. And it was an interesting look at history, but I always feel weird about that because I'm like, this lady don't know. She wasn't around in the 20s. But so there were like all these smaller like social things that, especially in the beginning, I was like, she don't know. But then we were getting into like bigger historical events like World War II and things like that, and it was like, oh, she researched her butt off for this book, and like mad respect, but I still don't quite see the point. So vaguely, minorly enjoyable, easy, not a quick read by any means though. Plot moves slow, characters move slow, they're just living their farm life. So welcome to the library, my friend. Books I would like to read in March. I decided to go more Women's History Month, which is fun for me. That's so fun for me. So one, just this is no particular order, it's just what happens to be on the top of my pile right here. The Norton Book of Women's Lives, edited by Phyllis Rose. You can see it used to be a library book. There's a crinkle, it used to be a library book. My school library was getting rid of like 90% of their books like a year or 2 after I graduated, and just had a bunch of them on a cart that said free. My sisters were like, hey, you should come back and get some of these, and I did. I came to pick them up from school one day and we all went in. They got some, I got some. It was a great day of lots of free books that otherwise probably would have been burned in a plant in North Carolina. So this is one of the beauties that we saved, that I saved, and it is just little, it's very thick, but a lot of them look, I'm trying to find like a, okay, Vera Brittain. I don't know her. I'm very excited to get to know her. It just gives like the year of their birth to the year of their death, a brief description of them, and then an excerpt from something they've written, whether it be essays or their diary, a memoir. I don't think there's any fiction work. But I don't know for sure. That at least was not my impression. But I would love to see if there is. Anyway, very thick, so it's a little ambitious, especially for like the kind of book it is, but you know, Women's History Month, let's give it a try. I think I'm gonna try and not read it straight through, but read it like in spurts between other books. Second, and I may have bit off more than I can chew because this is another chunky boy, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. Chunky girl. Women's History Month. This is another chunky girl. My dog is barking. There's never a moment of peace in this house. I have had this for like probably 2 years now and not gotten around to it. I always want to get around to it, but I never do. Here we go. The Warmth of Other Suns. Wish me luck. All right, so then I panicked because those are chunky. So I thought a short comic this month. We're not going to do an anthology. We're not going to do a graphic novel. We are doing Batman Urban Legends 1. Just issue number 1. And I love the art on the front. I love Jason Todd. So I'm excited. And that's all I have to say about that one. Aside from, should I have saved Wonder Woman for this month? Maybe, but I wasn't thinking about Women's History Month yet. So, yeah, now I don't have any other woman like comics because it's not a very female-dominated field. And also because I like the Bat family. And they are more men than women. Also because I didn't have any women left in this genre, I just have 101 famous poems. I had some options over there that are male poets, and I thought as long as I chose this anthology of just 101 famous poems, there'd be women mixed in as opposed to reading one that I knew was going to be exclusively men. So here we go. It has Elizabeth Barrett Browning in it, which I read a poem by her at my best friend's wedding. Allison, I know you watch these. Shout out, I love you forever. And that has lodged Elizabeth Barrett Browning in my heart forever, alongside her. I think it just stood out because that's the very first one. It includes poetry by, and the very first name is Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I probably would have picked it up anyway. A bunch of famous poems all together. And then lastly, a woman author. Fiction. My fiction book for the month. Hope Extinguished by Catherine Lee. Sound familiar? Ugh. It should. It should. Yes, it is the sequel to the shorter book I picked up last month. It's a little longer. And yeah. Excited to continue to support Catherine Lee. I'm excited to see where the story continues to go. And that's all I have to say about that. So those are my intended books for the month. I will say though that I'm feeling a little moody lately, and I am a big mood reader. So I do not know if these will stay the books that I read. Things might get mixed up. But that is my plan for now. So it's my mom's birthday. I gotta get going to clean the house and set up some decorations. From that, thank you for watching. I've been getting some really wonderful comments lately. Very few people watch my videos, but I'm so happy to know that the people who do are so kind. You're wonderful. Thank you for watching and have a great day, everybody. I will see you next week.